Welcome back to 5-Minute Photo. I'm Bill Ferris, and in this episode we're going to work in Adobe Lightroom 5 to process a photograph that I took recently at the North Rim of Grand Canyon. So let's get started. So I've got a folder in Adobe Lightroom with 2 photos imported. Both were taken at Cape Royal at sunset recently during a trip to the North Rim. This is the photo we'll be working with, so let's take a look at it full screen. And we'll get into our develop module. One of the things I like about Lightroom 5, well really the big thing I like about this application is that in just a few minutes using the basic tools that are available in Lightroom, you can take a raw image and process it to a completed image. And again, it just takes just a few minutes. So we'll begin by making a list of the kinds of changes we'd like to make. I like the exposure on this cliff face on the red wall. I think that's pretty close to exactly where I want it. There are a number of areas in the image that are a bit dark and don't really pop enough to my liking. And also the sky. The sky is an area that I'd like to address. In fact, that's where we'll get started with the sky. We'll use our graduated filter. Again, we can click on that icon or we can just press the letter M. And we begin by dragging down the filter from the top. That looks about right to me. We'll drag this so that the center horizontal line is aligned with the horizon. I'm going to bring the exposure down just a bit, about half a stop, and we'll also bring up the saturation. I think about 20 points. That looks good. Next thing I'm going to do is use an adjustment brush, and I want to adjust just this red wall. I said I like it. It's very close, but it's not exactly where I want it to be. So we'll activate the Show Selected Mask overlay so it's highlighted in red. And I use a default setting of 75% density. I think that gives me a little more control over the adjustment tool. And I'm going to bring down the highlights in this. And we'll bring them down right about there, a setting of -35. I think that's going to work just fine. Next thing we're going to do is, again, using the adjustment brush, we'll add a new layer with that. I'm going to highlight Wotans Throne. Again, we'll activate the Shows Selected Mask Overlay tool. We'll also highlight the layers of rock below. The idea here is I want to increase the exposure a bit. I'll probably also adjust clarity and contrast to help those layers pop and still have a nice natural look to them even though we're increasing the exposure. So we've highlighted the area we want to work with. We'll begin by increasing exposure. I think again about half a stop should be good. Now you notice it's looking a bit washed out, and so that's where clarity will help. Use a setting of about 30 on that, and also contrast. And contrast darkens as well. That's okay because we want to help these different sections below Wotans Throne kind of stand out and pop a little more than they were. Continuing to use the adjustment brush, we'll do a new layer. We will again activate our Show Selected Mask Overlay. We'll highlight this section. We're going to adjust the exposure here as well. Deactivate that. Bring up the exposure, not that much, right about there, a full stop. We will boost the contrast a bit. 15 points, and I think we'll help it pop with a little bit of clarity. 20-point adjustment. And another adjustment tool layer on this fin. And I'm working pretty quickly here. Just because I'm trying to keep this within the 5 minutes of 5-minute photo. So we will increase the exposure. Not a full stop. I think like 0.8 of a stop. Again, this is a 75% density, so it's not really 0.8 of a stop. It's something less. Use clarity to help it pop. Maybe not quite that much. And I'm thinking that's pretty good. All right. I want to use another graduated filter tool. We have the sun coming from the upper right. And that's a natural kind of warm light. We're going to broaden this one a lot and have the fall off be a little more even. We're going to adjust the temperature here. I'm going to warm it. And I think right about there. At a 30 point adjust. 31. And we'll also add maybe a little magenta, just to give it a little more warmth again. Okay, so there we have it. I think we've got a finished photo, one I'd be proud to share with the public, with you. Again, we did all this work in Adobe Lightroom, using its basic suite of tools, the adjustment brush, the graduated filter, and settings in those tools to make the kinds of changes we want to take a raw image and process it into a final image that's great for public display. Thank you for watching. I'm Bill Ferris. I'll see you next time on 5-Minute Photo.